I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. So, before I begin, I would like to know, do you have a preference as to how I refer to you?
You can call me Joe. I
Joe?
prefer Joe. Yeah,
Okay.
it's easier.
Okay, Joe. So, briefly, we spoke over the phone about some issues that you were having with one of your sons, correct?
That's correct.
And you were saying that it tends to cause a lot of issues in your household, right?
It does. My son was diagnosed with ADD,
Mm-hmm.
and he has a lot of attention issues.
Mm-hmm.
So it affects our family,
Mm-hmm.
um, with my husband and his brothers and so forth. So
Mm-hmm.
we all have different tempers, and so it affects us a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, tell me, typically, how does that make you feel?
Frustrated.
Uh-huh.
Um, Unable to get everything organized.
Mm-hmm. So unorganization,
Yeah. Frustration, disconnect.
Okay. Tell me why you feel disconnection.
The disconnection is because you don't know how to relate to someone who has ADD,
Mm-hmm.
in order to make them focus normally as
Mhm.
what we think it is, what's
Right.
normal.
Right. Well, so we think is normal,
Mhm.
correct.
So,
So tell me, how does it affect your household?
um, due to the disorganization,
Mm-hmm.
the disconnect, it affects his brothers.
Mm-hmm. Tell me how. Elaborate on that.
He because of the tension, he'll be working with one brother, let's say, doing something, and then the other brother might come in the room and he'll just get distracted. And because he gets distracted, he messes up whatever he was doing with the first brother, and then causes, like, it's him, the attention has to be on him.
Right.
So he's like, no, this is what I want to do now. And, so they're just the boys, his brothers, they get frustrated with him because it's all about him,
Right.
so causing fights,
Mm-hmm.
not physical, but it's just arguments and
Arguments.
stuff like that. So then, you know, me and my husband, whoever is here, gets involved, and then it's like, the yelling because
The bickering. Mm-hmm.
yeah, the bickering, and no one's listening and no one's hearing, and so that gets so crazy here. My husband has a certain temper, and he's a man, so he's like, boys, this is how you got to do it.
Correct.
And then I'm the mom who wants to be nurturing, but because I'm more disciplined than my husband is, and so it just causes so much disorganization.
Correct.
So
Okay.
that's why.
Okay. What changes would you like to see in your household?
I want it to be organized again.
Okay.
I want it to be where we are normal,
Mm-hmm.
accepting the fact that he has ADD.
Correct.
I just want the bickering to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I want everyone to be on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the focus.
Okay. So let me go back and just go over a few things to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay.
Um, basically, which son is it? How many kids do you have?
I have 3 boys, and it's my oldest.
Okay.
So his name is Brandon.
Okay. So Brandon has been diagnosed with ADD, and basically, you guys feel like you're living in an abnormal household.
Yes.
And you guys just want to live as to what we think is normal.
Right.
And you want everyone to be able to get along and everyone to be on the same page and get some organization on in your household.
Right.
Okay. So I have a question as far as, how old is Brandon?
Brandon is now 14.
Brandon is 14 years old. Okay. And when was Brandon diagnosed?
Brandon was diagnosed not too long ago.
Okay. And tell me, if you could put yourself in Brandon's shoes, I want you to tell me, how do you think Brandon feels? Because as the parent, you have your perspective of how you feel about everything. You probably know how your husband feels, and you probably can sense of how your other 2 sons feel. But sometimes when we're dealing with a situation like this, we have to look at it from the other point of view, because he may feel like it's a gang up against him. So I want you to explain to me, how do you think Brandon feels?
I
about him
think he
having
feels
ADD?
frustrated because no one understands him.
Okay.
Um, a lot of the times that I've realized with ADD is that, you know, after reading a lot of stuff, I've done a lot of research. Um, I noticed that it's his thing is attention. So his mind is going like 50 miles an hour, and what he's saying is going much slower. So his words get scrambled, and his emotions get scrambled. So I have learned little by little to take time and have him slow down.
Okay.
Because he's fast. Like he wants things done in his way, and again, so I can. His feeling must be very frustrating when no one can understand where he's coming from.
Right.
And he probably has good intentions, but because it's going so fast and the timing is everything. To him, he doesn't have that in his mind, you know. So
how does Brandon adjust in school?
Brandon's a very good student. He's very, very smart. He's about a B, a very high B. He can get C's, but that's when he's really lazy. And because with ADD, he doesn't focus. He can lose focusness like this.
Is he on medication?
He is.
Okay.
And because of the medication, it has been helping him stay on track.
Okay. Tell me, medication wise, because he's on medication, I know I've seen a situation where if a kid doesn't take his meds, it's him against mom. So I want you to tell me, does Brandon take his meds every day?
Brandon, when he first got diagnosed, they gave him, he's only been on one type of medication.
And what medication is that?
He's on Concerta.
Okay.
And at the time that he was diagnosed, he was a little bit obese.
Okay.
So they put him on Concerta, 27 milligrams, which was the mildest dosage.
Okay.
It has been the only medicine he's been on.
Okay.
Which I'm very grateful because I didn't have to
go
go
through. The
through.
dosage has never been.
The only thing, it has increased as he got older.
Okay.
You know, to keep it more longer.
Okay.
So the medicine has helped.
Okay.
Because he can stay focused.
Okay.
He still is a boy, and being a boy, you know, he's just he wants to be lazy sometimes, you know. But the medicine does slow him down enough to where he can focus.
Okay.
So I have to say the medicine does help.
Okay. Tell me about.
I'm sorry. And to answer your question, he takes it every day for school. I try not to give it to him during the weekends. And during the summer, I kind of want him to be him. But what I notice is that if he doesn't have his medicine for 2 days or so, his attitude changes. He has a mood swing.
Okay. That's what I was getting to. I wanted you to tell me, give me an episode as when Brandon does not take his medication.
He plays basketball.
Okay.
And if he doesn't take his meds, let's say, I'll give you an example this weekend. I gave it to him Friday morning. Saturday we left to go play basketball. I forgot to get him his meds because we were going to come home on Sunday, and I know that sometimes I can skip a day. I've noticed now I can't skip 2 days because his mood swings, he gets down, he has an attitude, he's whatever mom, whatever dad, you know, his teammates would try to help him, you know what I mean? Because I had to explain that to them, that he does have ADD. And it's not a bad thing. I just want them to understand that.
Understand him
with his attitude. You know, I don't want them to think that it's a personal thing because it really isn't. It's just he's frustrated with himself if he doesn't get playing time, if he feels like he didn't, if he didn't get his shots in. So he gets down on himself. But what happens is he reacts to everyone else. In a negative impact. So because he's not going to say to himself, you know, dang, you know, whatever, he's going to like, don't talk to me. Nah, like, you know, he'll just be quiet. He'll just shut down. And then people are like, come on, you know, whatever, it's okay, you know.
And he retaliates.
And then he just shuts down. Like he's just nasty attitude is like the best word I can give it. You know what I mean? So I now have to give it to him. Like, I could skip one day.
Okay.
But I notice that by the second day, if he has games or something like that, I have to give him his medicine.
Okay. And I have a question. Another question. Have you guys ever seen anyone about this before?
Yes. We went to a certain clinic to diagnose him because after doing the research and he had went through an incident with me, I decided to go to family therapy.
Okay.
And where they diagnosed him with ADD.
Okay.
So we did family therapy first.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about family therapy. How did it work out for you? I noticed you said we did family therapy, so I'm going to assume that you guys aren't in family therapy anymore.
Right.
Okay.
We don't do family therapy anymore. Okay. We did only a few sessions.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, what they were trying to do with family therapy, I understood. They were trying to show self-discipline for him. They were trying to show all of us how to communicate with him, how to self-award him, with charts and stuff like that.
Well, that's typical.
Yeah. Awards for this and that, and like for things that he does good and stuff like that. But see, Brandon is a good kid. It's just when he's explosive. Because of his mind's going 50 miles an hour. He can't express himself. He's getting frustrated. So when he's bringing it out on everybody, it's like, what do we do? So it was like what she was trying to teach us wasn't good enough or strong enough tools to continue. Okay. Yes, I did take a few things,
Tell me some of the things that you took from.
I did do the charts of if you give me a B, you'll get like $5. If you clean your room without me having to tell you, you get $1. Or we were doing things like that. But after that, it was like he got older. He was like, I don't want this type of reward. I just want tell me I did a good job and praise me, because he's that type of kid. He's like, he loves attention. He's a little bit like me. He loves attention. He loves, to feel appreciated. He needs that. It's like a soothing thing for him. Okay. So it's not about, Brandon doesn't need electronics. He likes to watch movies. He doesn't mind hanging out at home. But yeah, he does like to hang out with his friends, but he doesn't mind. Like, so if they were like, take this away, when he does wrong. And I'm like, that's not doing anything for him. Okay. Then I was like, maybe I'll take him away from basketball, because at the time, that was like the only thing I knew that I could hurt him with a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, to take things away. And then they told me no, because kids with ADD, they need something to focus on. They need to, so I took that. So I never took him out of basketball. But,
Are you very involved?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I at least I try to be, as much as I can. I've had jobs where it has taken me away from being there.
What do you do?
Well, right now I am mortgage processor.
Okay.
So, but I had other jobs where I had to travel.
Okay.
And Brandon is very close to me, so when I wouldn't be able to go to his games, you would tell he was shut down.
Okay, I was gonna ask.
And my husband called me one time. He had a game, and he was his coach. And my husband cried because Brandon was so adamant, like, I'm not playing. He was just nasty attitude again, So my husband got so frustrated, he started crying. He called me. He was like, I need you here, because he doesn't do that if you're here, So, and I remember going to another game. I came late, got there fourth quarter, and they were like, I don't know what's wrong with Brandon. He's not shooting, because he was like the star of the team, and he's not shooting and stuff like that. And I was like, that's weird, like, I know that he would be playing. As soon as I started yelling, he didn't see me. I just started yelling. He heard my voice, and he gave me 3 threes in like 10 seconds, and he started to show up, and everyone was like, you need to start coming to the games more on time, you know? So I started to realize that my son needs that yelling. He needs to hear me.
He needs that support.
Yeah, he needs definitely that support.
So question, do you feel like Brandon is very dependent on the medication?
No.
Do you feel like Brandon is very dependent on you?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me.
Independent, but dependent. You know, he could be on his own. I know that Brandon's gonna be okay. You know what I mean? If I'm not here, you know. But I think he still needs me.
Okay.
You know, to give him that structure.
Okay.
And I think that's what he continues to need, is structure.
So tell me, say you have a situation where you're not able to travel one weekend, neither is your husband. How do you think, but you send Brandon with his medication. Tell me how you think that'll work out.
I think he would be fine. I don't leave my child with just anybody. You know, I know who he's going with, and I explain the situation.
Okay.
It's very rare that I wouldn't be there or my husband wouldn't be there.
Okay.
Because if we really don't and we let him go, we have to make sure that person knows how to handle
him.
You know, so those are things that we try like to negotiate, you know, with whoever. But if he was to go, I feel like as long as he had his medication in the morning,
he'll be fine.
Okay. You know, he's a good kid. Like once he's on that, I mean, he's just on his medicine. He's not like slow or anything like that. He's just calmer. You know, he can communicate.
Right.
So that's why I don't try to give it to him all the time.
Right.
Because I don't want him to be dependent on the pill.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So I'm just going to go back over again. So basically, when we first started, we spoke about what was going on, how it typically made you feel, how it's affecting your household. You guys are feeling like there's no structure, no organization. You guys are feeling abnormal. You want to feel normal. You feel like Brandon is independent, but then again, he is dependent on you. Sometimes if you go too long without the medication, he could basically be out of control. He does play basketball. You've explained it with his teammates, so his teammates try to uplift him. But if mom isn't there, it's kind of a sticky situation. So how do you feel about dad's control? Not saying that dad does not have any control, but when I ask about how do you feel about dad's control, what I'm trying to get to is, say for instance you were a flight attendant. How do you think dad would be able to handle that? Because I know you said when dad called you, he broke down. And you have 3 boys, so that's tough. 3 boys, 1 man, you know, that's tough. They they need mommy. So tell me, how do you think when I'm saying dad's control, as in, how do you think dad would be able to handle Brandon if you weren't always around?
I think he gets frustrated because he doesn't know how to communicate with his son, or make him understand how to be a leader or how to be a young man, because there's a struggle there. So Brandon likes to have the last word, you know. So when his dad is telling him what to do, it's like, but why?
Right.
What?
Right.
So there's a constant struggle of who is in charge.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because we tell Brandon since he was little, you know, you're the man of the house. You know what I mean? You're the next man in the house.
Right. You're the oldest.
You're the oldest. So if mom and dad are not here, you got to run the ship. You know what I mean? So he's always, there's a struggle there. So I think he can handle him, but I just think that sometimes he has a shorter fuse.
Okay.
For his son.
Okay.
You know,
but that goes back to you guys saying that you guys feel like you guys are abnormal.
Yeah.
So it's I believe it goes back to not knowing how to deal with it because it's not something that you're used to.
Right.
Like, because I was going to ask, does ADD run in either one of your family?
No.
Okay.
So sometimes think it happens to my husband. But that's another story. That's another session. So, but I think, no, we don't have anyone that has ADD.
So this is your first time dealing with a psychological disorder as such? Okay. Okay.
For both of us, you know, because my husband's never had to deal with that, you know. And so for him, it's so like, what did we do wrong?
Right.
Like, you know, he says, well, what did you drink or eat, you know, when you were pregnant, you know? And I'm like, it wasn't me, I swear, you know.
What led you to have Brennan diagnosed, like have Brennan checked?
Oh, that's a good
because
question.
It's like, I know that it's a process. You don't just wake up and say, my child can't think straight, he has a psychological disorder. You know, it's a process. Things happen. You have to undergo a psychiatric evaluation.
Right.
You go here, you go there, you go to specialists. It's a long process. So I want to know what led you, what were some of the behaviors that you were seeing that made you say something is up with my child?
I noticed, when Brandon was like about 2.5 years old, Brandon had a tantrum, and it wasn't like a normal 2-year-old tantrum. It was like an anger management type. Like, I was like, my kid, there's something wrong. You know what I'm saying? So I was like very frustrated with that, and you know, every time he would get in trouble, it was more like, oh my God, like he was just extra. You know what I mean? It wasn't. It was just too much. So then when he was in school, I started to notice that he was, you know, not focused, and the teachers would have meetings with me, and they would be like, hey, you know, Brandon's a good kid. He's not failing, but he's not doing his work.
Right.
He's worried about everyone else doing their work. He was actually tutoring the other kids in the class, but he wasn't finishing his assignment.
Wasn't doing what he had to do.
Right. He wanted everybody else to be good. And I'm like, what about you? And he would be like, what about me? I know what I was doing. No. If your name is not on the piece of paper,
then you don't
get credit. You don't get credit for helping. But it was a good personality, good trait, but it was not helping him.
Right.
So after a while, I started to like, you know, it was every year I was almost having a meeting, you know, and he would start good and go down, start good, and you know, so we dealt with that struggle. And sorry, my voice is hoarse.
It's okay.
And
basketball this season.
Yes. A lot of yelling. But so we were going through that, and one day me and him just like, it was like World War III. And with words, it was just like, you know, he wanted to have the last word, I wanted to have the last word, and I said, hold up, what's going on? You know, like, and his attitude, it was more his focusedness, his attitude, and I was like, what is going on? So I just, you know, a lot of people had told me, he was like, you know, his attention, and I just started saying, well, I know ADD has to do with attention, and he's not hyper at all. He's very calm, tame, yeah. So I just started reading about ADD, ADHD, and I swear to God that I was reading it, and I could see my son's picture. It was like they were telling me my son.
So basically, it was ADD and it defined Brandon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it defined Brandon. And so I did some research with my health insurance, and I went to a place where they do intakes of ADD. And then that's where we found the family therapist. The intake person told us he was in the room and literally messing with the chair as the person is trying to ask him questions. And he's just like, Mom, you see this? Mom, it has air. I said, because it's a seat, Brendan, the guy's asking you questions. He's like, Mom, but listen, look. And I was like, wow. And the guy, and the thing is, it just like everything clicked. It was just like, you finally did it. And then, you know, the psychiatrist, you know, spoke to us, and she just said, you know, look at these, you know, options. At the time when he was diagnosed, like I said, he was obese.
Right.
considered obese.
Okay.
Brandon was like wearing an adult small.
Where is he now?
Oh, he is an extra large in kids.
So the medicine made him drop tremendously.
In a good way, healthy way.
That's good.
You know, so he lost all that baby fat, and it was a lot. But and it made him. And but the thing is, even though he was obese, he was active. He played sports. He played soccer. He played basketball. And I mean, constant. I was constantly busy with him. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like
just keeping him active.
Right, definitely. I mean, yeah, they have electronics or whatever, but they hardly even played it because we were never home.
Right.
So I kept them busy with that, and I mean, we did that, and it was awesome. So I mean, we're just trying to get to some type of organization with all that. So
I see. I see that you're a very good mom.
Thanks. I try.
I see that. Well, Mrs. Joe.
Yeah,
sorry.
It's okay. No problem. Everyone does that.
I feel like we did good today. I feel like we touched on some really good points. I got a lot of information down, and I feel like we're only going to go up from here. I see a lot of positivity in you, and I see that you really want change. And I'm looking forward to meeting with you again and going over in our next section. We'll probably try to figure out some coping strategies for you and your